just seems quite crazy at the moment.
Yeah, but anyways, what I was saying was my 8th grade graduation, right? So I went to, did you go to Hidden Valley?
No. So, I came out in tail end of 8th grade at Rincon.
Okay, so we had our 8th grade graduation day, and then I had only smoked weed like maybe a couple times, and then actually Adam, he made some brownies one time with weed, but I don't think he knew to like make the butter first.
Yeah.
So thank God, because I ate it at school, and it was just like the buds. I could taste the crunchy like buds,
like actual flour.
Yeah.
In it.
So that didn't do anything, which is good because I ate it in the morning.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But then we had this 8th grade graduation here at this park, and he figured out how to make butter. And so they made, they had like cookies here for the, and then. Oh my God. And we thought we were so sly. We were just putting this like green butter on top of the cookies, like right in front of the teachers, man. They're probably just like, well, there's nothing we could really do. They must have fucking known. So I got so goddamn high at this park. And then I just remember I got stuck like over there. It was obviously different, but it was one of those like, the enclosed like little slides, and I was just like stuck in there. And then like some older kid even came up to me and he handed me some eye drops.
It's like, I got you, dude.
Yeah.
This was high school?
No, this is my 8th grade graduation day.
Middle
so before high school. It was middle
Started
school.
young.
We were young, dude. We got into stuff young.
Yeah.
I look at like Huck Quinn and like my kids, and so innocent for the age, and I'm just like, man,
it's different times, right?
Yeah, we were just into so much stuff, like years before even where he's at now, age-wise.
This girl I work with, her and her dad, she got into ayahuasca, and she had her dad in his 50s now do ayahuasca. He's done it 3 times now.
Nice.
But they have the 12-year-old sister doing it. 12 years old. This
Doing
girl
IS
did
ceremony?
ayahuasca.
Like ceremonial?
Yeah,
setting
she
and
showed me
everything?
pictures, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's your younger
The
sister.
one in Mexico?
Well,
Wow.
the one I work with, she's in her 20s.
Yeah.
Her dad, like, she's introduced it to her entire family.
Yeah.
And the youngest that I saw in the photo was 12 years old.
At the one in
Tecate.
Tecate.
Yep.
And I don't understand though, because any
They did
reputable
Well,
like shaman, I don't know. I mean, yeah, in the Amazon, they
Culturally, I'm sure,
they would
culturally,
give
it
to
probably
them
starts
young,
a lot
around-
younger,
around
right?
there.
It's a rite of passage
but
thing, but
for them, I mean, they're American, right?
Who?
It doesn't matter. I mean,
no,
even just
these
for
are everyone that I'm talking about is
they're
from Mexico.
from Mexico, born in
Well, they
Mexico.
have the 2 I work with they're citizens.
I'm just saying, though, that seems a little young. Like, I'm
lot
surprised
to
they
work out.
took
Yeah.
that risk, and
Yeah.
that almost seems kind of.
That's why
I don't know.
said
From
it.
everything I've heard from that, and then they do it like during the day too, which seems kind of weird.
they do a day ceremony.
And then he was saying
they
you're
start
supposed.
you with combo.
So they do the 12
Combo cleanse. I don't know. I didn't ask about that.
Jeez,
But-
at 12 years old, if I
Yeah.
did combo, I might be like, okay, I'm not.
And
I'm good.
Then they'll do yape or rape
Yeah,
and yopo
Yeah, the
blast
snuffs.
through the ceremony, and I'm like, wait a minute, that you're doing all 3 of those in one day.
It just doesn't sound that professional to me. Like from what I've heard, I don't know.
Well,
I don't think I want to go down
Joe's
there.
going to be the guinea pig, and
At what he said, he's like 65.
he is in his 60s,
Wow.
and everyone I've met that's been there so far has been great. But Joe came up to me today and told me his daughter knows somebody that does it in the tradition of the Santa Daima.
Yeah, the church.
That's
Yeah.
what I want to
Yeah.
find.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, please let me know
Where?
about that.
yeah,
And so he's going to talk to his daughter, and he's even curious about that now. So
I heard that you have
Right.
to learn like hymns before they have, because it's
You
it's
actually
very
to
Christian
participate in
to
the-
participate in the ceremony. You
Yeah.
have to memorize these.
Well, that's
hymns,
where I'm a little
which I think is
confused.
kind of cool.
because they created that as kind of like an umbrella to like be legal.
Right.
I don't think so.
But
though.
now
I
they,
think
they
it's
firmly
legit.
believe it.
No,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's in that order though. I think they legitimately believed the thing. Like
It's a
It was
hodgepodge
really-
of Christianity and,
Yeah.
and jungle, and it
There's
seems
a-
a little all over the place.
There's a lot of that too, even with like the voodoo traditions in Louisiana and stuff like that, where they adapted the saints to fit traditional
But what is
iconic
traditional?
figures, but then it's like some people are like, oh well, they did it to hide what they were actually worshiping, and then some people are like, no, they actually believe like these saints are like the incarnations of gods or sacred figures from Africa or from traditional African worship. So it's like
I never finished.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that kind of, especially with like the Catholic line. Yeah, which is weird because they're so strict here, right? But they get adapted. They're the ones that are like most adapted.
There's like a ton of mushrooms and like all these murals and like Did I send you that book I was reading? It was like that ebook. I wanted to actually. I forgot I was going to bring the tablet, so I have it on there. It's an ebook, and it's called the Psychedelic Gospel.
I think
there is you think like, you hear things, it's like the stoner thing, like, man, Christianity's based on mushrooms, but no, it really is.
It really is.
Like, not even, there was one, it's all these like in France, and like from like the 1200s and stuff.
Yeah.
And they have like all these murals, or like it's a lot of like stained glass and stuff. And they've had actual mycologists come out, and they're like, no, that is a psilocybin.
They identify.
Yeah, but not only that, they had one where there was like 4 different kinds. So the theory originally was that, the whole Christmas thing where they think like the reindeer herders, that's what kind of Christianity came from, like these Siberian mushroom, amanita eating reindeer herders. Yeah, but they even have these stained glass murals where there's like a psilocybe, and then there's there's like 4 different kinds. There's the amanita.
They're all actives.
And it's like anybody who knows, you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, it's obviously it's red with white dots. Like, come on. Yeah. And then like all the religious scholars, they're like, oh no, that's just trees. They just didn't know how to draw very well back then.
Well, you got
like hidden shit too.
You know how
like,
art is, though. It's up for interpretation.
That's true.
But on that note, today too is also day 1 of the psilocybin summit.
The summit, yeah,
is the
TAM integration? Yeah.
I haven't even began to look at all the people speaking. It's all online, right? There's going to be streaming.
I think it's a virtual thing at this point. Yeah. But
it's
a big summit.
Content. Yeah.
It's a big summit, and there's a lot of really renowned mycologists and just all facets of the movement.
Yeah.
Is that a new thing? I've never heard of it before.
I don't know. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like this isn't the first time around.
9/20 was always like Mushroom Day or something, right? Wasn't it?
Oh, because the 9/20 coalition. Yeah.
So
correct.
September always had something. I always remember September.
When's Shroom Fest?
Ari Shaffir Shroom Fest?
Yeah, when's that?
I don't know.
What is that?
That's a comedian.
That's
Ari
like
Shaffir.
another online thing.
He does. He tries to just. If you haven't done mushrooms, do mushrooms.
Oh,
and
really?
He puts out like
just
a
like
t-shirt,
super pro mushroom
and
guy?
just pushes it, and he's been doing it. I actually have a t-shirt that he did in 2017.
And you didn't even realize you were wearing it on that day when we saw the OCs. Remember?
I'm not recalling this.
Yeah, you were wearing the Shroom Fest shirt, but I don't think I think you knew it was around that week, but I was like, oh yeah, no, it was the day.
Nice.
And I think you took mushrooms that night too. So there you go.
You did. That was intense.
It worked out.
Intense. But yeah, so you're deep in the mushroom world.
Yeah.
I've watched you for a while. It's beautiful.
It's gone out of control.
So you like what are your favorite? I can't even tell. Like, you like the reishis, right? Or are you going for the...
Yeah, I feel like a connection with those ones specifically, just kind of drawn, I'm fascinated by all of them, but something about the reishis, just kind of like a deep, kind of like an old connection,
I like how they're like I guess it's the air exchange, but they can fan out.
Yeah,
or they can look like antlers and candy corns. Like
and the coloring to them is just so intensely beautiful and vibrant, and the gradation. They're just stunning. They're stunning, and super powerful medicine. I mean, they're really ancient medicine too.
Yeah.
So,
do you cook with them?
No. So one guy that I kind of consider a mentor, has told me stories about making stews with them, but they're generally not very edible. They're when they're like harvested and dried, they replicate the texture and density of like the trees that they come from. It's wild. They're really tough. Yeah, like when we make our tincture extracts with them, the ones that we cultivate are nice and soft because they're fresh. But the ones that we get from foragers on the East Coast send us, really chunky, meaty conchs. And
so you're getting stuff from foragers?
Yeah. So we're trying to, especially with reishi, because they grow on a variety of different trees, and the trees all have unique, chemical profiles and essential oils, and so they're all kind of. My thought is using a variety of them to get like a more broad spectrum, and so we can only cultivate so many, and people also say that they feel that I don't know. I've never seen lab results to back this up, but people feel that there's more chemistry to the foraged mushrooms. So we try to get a good balance of a variety and home cultivated and foraged.
So what mushrooms do you grow, like in total?
Actively right now, we've kind of scaled back because the website's just been so crazy. It's hard to find time to like personally grow mushrooms. But the Cordyceps militaris, we're working on those.
That's actively. The one that grows traditionally. You get it that grows on the back of the caterpillar, right?
That's
Correct.
not militaris though.
So
it's a slightly different strain.
So that's the Tibetan. There's a very specific species from Tibet, the cyanescence, and then and then closely related species in like China and stuff. So the cyanescence is the ones that grows on the Tibetan silkworm, very like specific caterpillar, and they go for incredible amounts of money because they can't really be replicated in a cultivated sense. It has to be foraged. So that's the one that always like catches everyone's attention. But the militaris is actually American, and it has a variety of hosts. I think that's been found in like 7 different hosts, but it's like still on like moths and they've found them on wasps, but usually it's in the pupate stage. It takes it over as
mostly insects.
Always insects. Yeah, it's always on an insect host.
Yeah.
You gotta describe what they look like too. Like they look like fucking Cheetos.
They're so orange, and
they just look like stalagmite Cheetos.
Yeah.
And I really got to call out the work of terrestrial fungi guy.
Exactly. Yes.
That guy is like
a wizard.
He's seriously breeding all those. Like he's going for the, what are they called? The mono. Like he's looking for like the
isolated, the ascospores.
And then he's searching through all the spores to find the one. What are they, monokaryot or something? And you have to cross it with another monokaryot to make a mushroom, but it might not have like it's just it's amazing.
Yeah.
And he has hundreds of times.
Yeah. His collection. I mean, because it's just breeding in general. You just you got to kind of hunt through the genetic diversity to find what's, and he's obviously aimed at producing viable cultures for people to get into commercial growing. So he's always looking for performance and stuff, and sometimes unique morphology, but usually more performance. But that terrestrial is the one that I was talking about as far as like the reishi stews and soups. He's the one that does that. The only person I've ever heard of doing that. But he has a lot of health issues that, with like inflammation, and reishi is just so incredible for inflammation. So he consumes it on a level that probably most people don't.
Is lion's mane the one that's supposed to taste like lobster?
Yeah, it definitely has kind of a seafood-esque spectrum.
Okay, that's the one. Yeah, because I recently watched that Fantastic Fungi.
Yeah, that movie.
Yeah, it's really interesting, except for the narrator. I'm sorry. In the beginning, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of kills it. It's almost just like trying too hard.
The imagery is super gorgeous. It's so powerful.
No, I know. I mean, other than that, it's amazing documentary. A lot of stuff I didn't know about or anything, but mushrooms are a trip, man.
Yeah, literally.
So how do you, being around them, do you feel like there's like some kind of like intelligence, like even just with these like more edible or mushrooms?
Yeah, I do, man, for sure. Even starting out with doing actives and cubes and stuff like that, those kind of my entry into
like psychedelic mushrooms. Yeah,
entry into cultivation. Right. I think honestly, probably 99% of cultivators start with cubes, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people eventually go the legal route because they want like a business that they can put on paper. But most people start with actives. which is kind of amazing. And it gets to a point where you kind of feel like you're doing their work, especially with cordyceps. And I've had some weird experiences with cordyceps. Like, for instance, one time I had made a liquid culture solution to grow them, and I'd left the jar on the counter, and I drink water out of mason jars, and I slugged down an incredible amount of culture, and it was already in my gut before I realized what I just swallowed. And I went through the craziest 24-hour period of fever shakes, and I feel like I honestly inoculated myself. I feel like maybe when I die, a cordyceps is going to come out of my ear or something. I don't know.
Wow. Well, just being around them so much, I mean, you must be getting inoculated.
Yeah.
You're probably covered in spores.
spores.
You're probably inoculating us right now. Right?
Yeah, probably.
Wow.
Probably, yeah. So, yeah, I feel like, and then also too, like I said, with the reishi, it's just really drawn to them for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, they're beautiful. There's a bunch of superficial, obvious reasons why one would be attracted to them, but there's something deeper there for sure.
Yeah, I love the Dennis McKenna quote. He's like, "You monkeys only think you're in control."
Yeah, right.
That gets
Right.
proven quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now on the reishis, does Terrestrial, does he really make those sculptures?
Yeah. So
How does he do that? Do they dried?
No, most of those are actively growing. Most
So when
of
he
them
refers to them as sculptures, they're living. I thought he was actually
yeah.
buying them in that state and selling
No, it's so that's an actual thing in Asia dominantly is bonsai reishi.
Wow.
And that's what he's doing. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they're super gorgeous. He's super masterful with them. And those sculptures are I mean, obviously much faster than a bonsai tree would be to cultivate, but there's some time put into those.
Got it.
Reishi is very slow. For a mushroom, it's one of the slowest growing.
Yeah.
So it's a patience thing for sure for cultivation.
That's beautiful.
And what does reishi do exactly? For your body? What is the benefits of taking that?
So there's all the mushrooms have this crazy overlap of so many benefits, mostly with immunomodulating properties, because the water soluble compounds in it, your polysaccharides, are really intensely effective at modulating your immune system. They just hijack your immune system and put it into overdrive. But reishi has maybe a little bit more than the average. It's super rich with polysaccharides, but it also has a bunch of other what we would consider alcohol-soluble compounds. So your ganideric acid and leucidenic acids and terpenes and triterpenes and biterpenes.
Mm-hmm.
Reishi's super bitter. That's another reason why people don't really it's not
Because you mostly just make it sell as a tincture. Right?
tincture. Yeah. That's the most easily.
And what's the name of your company?
Healing Cultures. Yeah. So that's the easiest way, in my opinion, to take in a medicinal mushroom, and especially for someone like me who has a sensitive digestive system. Mushrooms are really hard on digestion. So isolating those compounds out and making them more soluble and available is super beneficial. And just shelf life, a tincture will hold shelf life for a really long time. So the powdered mushrooms for me even can upset my stomach. So I don't like taking the capsules and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And you're using the soxlet extractor?
Correct. Yeah.
And you do a water base, then an ethanol bit. You pull one or the other?
So you gotta, because it's essentially a distillation extraction, you have to do your extraction separate. Whereas with a soak or traditional tincture making would be, doing a saturated soak in jars for X amount of time. You would proof it to a certain percentage of alcohol and then do your soak. But with soxlet, because you're boiling your solvent, and water and alcohol have such different boiling points. Even if you loaded alcohol and water in at the same time, it would only boil one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but your tinctures are specifically, do you do water first and then, or what's there's a triple
So there's so there's a triple extraction thing. That's kind of like controversial as far as like some people swear by it and some people say it's just all marketing gimmick. And then what we do is dual extraction. And so what that is like your water body extraction and then an alcohol extraction. And then the triple would be doing a warm water extraction. So like a boil, like a decant, and then, a cold or like room temp.
And then the tinctures are actually an alcohol as well. Mm-hmm. They're not like cannabis where you can put it in like a glycerin or something like that. Yeah,
you could do that. You could do that. Glycerin's not super effective for...
I don't like it. I got a ashwagandha tincture and glycerin, and it's so gross.
Yeah,
because the thing I was taking the alcohol tinctures at work, but then I noticed my breath smelled like alcohol a little bit. Yeah. So I got kind of scared. But yeah, I got the glycerin ashwagandha, and I still have it. I haven't even finished it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's not just really gross. Fan of it. It's not super effective solvent. Okay. It's I think the best approach to a glycerin type tincture would be to actually go ahead and do the extraction in alcohol, and then combine the alcohol and the glycerin and boil off the alcohol and leave those compounds in the glycerin, because the glycerin has a pretty high boiling point. So you could easily get away with boiling that mix and really only boiling the alcohol effectively and leaving the glycerin behind. And some people just have like people in recovery that don't want a single drop of alcohol. Yeah. So that's an application. Some people have, genetically, the Asian people have lack of enzyme for alcohol, right? Mm-hmm. So the people that have issues, the glycerins are like a solution, but in my opinion, by no means the choice, and the best option.
Do you tell people like always to mix it with water or take it with food, or is there any kind of... Because I noticed that like straight under the tongue kind of burns a little bit.
It burns.
And then I realized on an empty stomach wasn't too great.
Yeah.
I had a couple of rough times with that.
Yeah.
Cordyceps. So I would make sure I ate first and then just put it in even just a small cup of water. And then you're great. But that I tell you that cordyceps you gave me.
Yeah.
I ended up giving that because my old work, there's a desert truck place. The guy actually did a bunch of the machining for us, but he also built so, but they would just hang out and drink all day because the guy was like my age. But there was a bunch of desert bro dudes that probably like the cocaine.
Yeah.
And so I busted that out and I started giving them like, what's it like? Well, I was like, oh, it's like, it's mushrooms. And instantly they're like, oh, give me that. I was like, yeah, but it's not like that. He's like, well, what's it gonna do to me? I'm like, well, it kind of feels like a really clean, almost like a cocaine high.
Yeah, it does.
And so they're like, give me that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, they freaking loved it.
They love it.
I think that could have been like the street drug back in the day if somebody knew. Because that stuff would get you going, man.
Cordyceps is potent. For like a non-psychoactive mushroom, it's probably... So, I mean, out of all the tinctures that we take, depending on body sensitivity, there's a few that you can feel effects from. Reishi is gently calming. It's not like going to knock you out. And so for some people, maybe weed smokers and stuff, it's not going to do shit, because you're used to a much heavier hit.
There is a noticeable
effect. The Reishi.
Cordyceps is the one where you can be like, okay, you want to feel something? Because people are like, what's it going to do? Like, that was hitting me up.
I took too much a few times.
Yeah, no. You get sparked.
Yeah.
You can. It can be intense. And when I first started taking it, there's definitely a threshold where too much would be like just like drinking too much caffeine. It was uncomfortable.
It was like being on coke.
Yeah, it's a high, dude.
I was like buzzing hard.
It's
but a
really phenomenal.
much cleaner version of it.
Yeah, right. None of the nasty feelings afterwards. In fact, I get a glow from it, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
It's different than coffee.
Great. Yeah,
in my opinion,
it's not as jittery, and I took. Not actually your product, but I got some of the capsules. I think it was the Stamets company from the health store. And I went to Daily Ranch or something. And I felt like I could just walk up any hill there.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Pairing it with physical activity is incredible.
It's like
stay moving.
Going.
Yeah.
Something with your O2 upkeep or something. Like your capillaries.
It actually literally dilates them. So your oxygen uptake is like through the roof. It's incredibly increased, and then the ATP conversion is hijacked, and so not only are you getting more oxygen in your system,
Your
but the
mitochondria.
the mitochondria are just going nuts. So the pair of the
energy.
two is just like, and in Asia, that's a lot of it's like aphrodisiac and sex performance, like straight up, and because it's just so great with physical activity.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that basically what Viagra does? It just ups your oxygen.
That's a vasodilator.
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Interesting. So kind of some of the same mechanisms.
Well,
Well,
you
I
could
wouldn't-
actually release that same chemical by just breathing through your nose more.
But it's also in like beets. Like it's in nitrous
Really?
oxide. The nitrous
Oh,
oxide.
it's the nitrous in it.
The same, no, not the same chemical, but
Because it was
has
made
the
for
same
low blood pressure.
capillary.
originally. It was like an off-label
Exactly.
use. It was like
for Viagra.
for low blood pressure.
Sulfa something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you just take super low doses, so you're not like walking around with a boner all the
Well, that was what they tested
That's
it
what they
for.
started
and
it
then,
for,
and then they're like, wait a minute.
Everyone has erections, maybe we got something here.
Like, we're rich.
Interesting.
There's even a documentary about that.
Screw
Well,
you
what we
guys. Blood pressure problems.
Yeah. And we were talking about this recently too.
That's awesome.
Erectile tissue. That's the same tissue that's in your dick. Is also lines your nose, and we were talking about this with
We both
breath
got
work.
obsessed with this book.
We
It's called
finished the
Breath.
book Breath by James Nestor, and we're all I'm nose breathing constantly now. Like
Interesting.
at certain, but it's the erectile tissue in a huge cavity that lines your sinuses, and it changes shape and it engorges, and it's a
Yeah, when
magical
you get turned
organ.
on,
Boners?
You do. You do.
It's
You do.
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, what the hell? Really?
Yeah, and apparently, like
Interesting.
almost like the whole kind of thesis of this book is that like the unknown like health problems or the biggest like health problem in all over the world. That apparently like the Vedics knew this. Like there's whole cultures, even like a lot of Native Americans and stuff, is mouth breathing. It is really bad for you to only breathe through your mouth. And so there's this whole new kind of like Silicon Valley movement now of like taping your mouth shut.
It's ancient
Trying to-
technology.
'cause it's a
the
muscle.
pranayama and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
like
so it's all
even
breath work, right.
they're even showing like like the right nostril breathing, left nostril breathing.
Right.
It's legit.
Yeah.
They're not joking. Like one will warm you up, one will lower your temperature.
Wow.
So
That's nuts.
we're relearning a lot of stuff.
Wow.
And then I actually started reading this, or I finished this other book by the same author. Was it James Nestor? Right. And it actually came out before this book. This is how he kind of came to this conclusion. Was he did a book about freediving, and he started like hanging out. He wanted to see like because the human body is like capable of all this crazy shit.
If you condition it to and
Yeah,
train it.
these guys are going down on one breath over 500 feet and back,
Yeah, that's insane.
and they're holding their breath
15
for like
minutes.
yeah. And so
10, 15
yes,
minutes?
so there's this thing called the mammalian reflex. And even if you just splash cold water on your face, you could hold your breath longer.
Interesting.
So I got super into this, right? And then I even got this app. So, I mean, you could train yourself pretty easily to hold your breath for like say 3-4 minutes. It doesn't take that much it's just a muscle. And I'm not even kidding. I got this app. What did I tell you the other day? Like
You're
a
at
minute
2
and a
minutes.
half? 2.5 now.
There you go.
Just from the other day.
Yeah.
Crazy.
David Blaine said
Crazy.
Yeah.
you can go from 2 to 8 minutes in a couple weeks.
Just
And you-
with regular.
And
Just with
I just
training.
started training this like last Saturday, so not even 1 week. I went
it's-
from I could barely do a minute. Now I'm at 2.5 minutes.
And it's mostly mind work because
Yeah,
you're not going to die.
You just got to tell yourself you're not going to die.
It's-
Because you
Believe that
actually
you're not
you
gonna
actually
die,
don't
right?
lose any. You think you're losing oxygen when you get that
Yeah.
feeling.
Fight or flight.
You're actually not.
kicks in.
You don't lose any oxygen.
Yeah.
If you know that, like you're just calm
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
The feeling you're getting is just excess CO2, which makes you feel gross, and that's why you get that. Your chest starts freaking out. But if you're used to the CO2, like that's why like this training, you're not training yourself to be used to not having enough oxygen. You're training yourself to getting used to having an excess of CO2 for a while.
Interesting.
And then those two chemicals get regulated and they change the pH in your body. And that's what creates the fight or flight. Like there's this whole somatic exchange that actually creates the fight or
It's like
flight.
a chain reaction
Yeah.
that takes place.
But
What are the guys in Tibet called, that breathing technique?
Tumo.
Have you heard of that? Like the Tibetan guys where they could sit there in ice and just by breathing, they'll put a wet towel on their back and they sit there until they dry the wet towel just by breathing. Literally in snow.
What?
It's insane. And then they've
the
even
Wim Hof
tested these
method,
guys.
too.
They could
It is.
change
Well,
Is that where
on,
that
on
his is a modified 2 mode.
like derived from?
basically, yeah.
Thing? Yeah.
But they could literally change from their hand the temperature from one finger, like their index finger, to their pinky finger to completely different temperatures.
I heard that and I'm like, wow, like do it like your leg. Like it was funny. Like can you call it? Can you like you just meditated and found out that one spot?
Just all these crazy things that like, yeah. And then it's because they're tapping into it's the autonomic nervous system. And so autonomic is because they're saying that it's basically automatic. You can't change it. That's why they named it that. But the thing is, like, these people are doing it. So things that they thought was not possible, just by breathing, you could do. You could change your whole nervous system.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the yogis can do their heart rate, like where they can slow it down really slow, or they can even like increase it. Like Nestor talked about how they thought it stopped, but it was actually like at like 300 beats a second.
So fast, it's like I
like,
couldn't pick up the registry. That's crazy.
But you think like people who are stuck, like have like trauma or whatever, they're stuck in this like fight or flight. You know, it's like basically the same thing. It's like your polysympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
So I think the polysympathetic is like the fight or flight mode. I might have this backward. And then it's backward. Sympathetic is actually bad. It's like you're in your prefrontal cortex. You're stuck in that like fight, flight, or freeze state. Yeah. And so like by just breathing, you could actually get into this like polysympathetic state. Yeah, parasympathetic. That's it. Yeah. So where you could actually like, instead of just being stuck in this like, this mode of the samsara or whatever, you could actually like just by breath, you could like just kind of snap out of it for a while.
Is that the common progression that takes place with most like meditation practices? When you get into the
all about the breath.
Yeah, it's all breath work. Yeah.
This book specifically, this is a weird thing to me. Like it worked out to be the most ideal in science would be a 5.5 second inhale, a 5.5 second exhale results in 5.5 breaths a minute.
Oh, wow.
And what's weird is like they went back in history and like they measure prayers and they all tend to be like
at that
the same exhale and inhale. And they're just doing it with science now. Like they're taking O2 readings, they're taking blood pressure, heart rate. And when we either breathe too much or too little, like there's this fine line. Breathing's more important than we're realizing. It's old technology that we're relearning.
Yeah, right.
And he went under it himself. Like for a month, he put these plugs up his nose. So he only could breathe from his mouth.
Yeah.
Within 3 days, his blood pressure skyrocketed, sleep apnea, depression.
Yeah.
Eating habits changed, smell changed. And then he got it taken out, and then he did like a strict nose breathing practice. Complete opposite.
All reverted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
And it wasn't just him. He had another researcher do it. But we forgot all this.
Right.
Have you heard the term mouth breathing?
Yeah. Mouth
It's an insult.
Yeah. It is.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Interesting.
But he also goes into other weird stuff too, like our modern mouth. He relates it to chewing. Ask Josiah what he bought recently for chewing, because he's riding this one. Apparently when you chew, it creates stem cells. And you're supposed to start chewing as young as possible, and your mouth gets larger. But we have historically bad teeth and smaller mouths. And you go back he goes into fossil records, shows perfect teeth on all the hunter-gatherers. And
wow.
Much larger mouths, much larger flared out noses. And it's a muscle. So we've stopped using the nose, and now we're mouth breathing. It results in atrophy in the nose and then a chain reaction.
That's crazy.
And it's interesting. It kind of blew my mind, but if you've dabbled in the yoga.
Yeah, I was going to say, because
like, wait a minute.
In the beginning of class, typically, and they'll even say that, like, okay, now we're breathing, doing the breathwork practices to initiate the parasympathetic system. And
ancient tech.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah, and most of the stuff, we just got to listen to our body more.
Right.
Because it's actually giving us a lot of signals.
Right, you just got to learn how to tune in and pay attention.
But we got our cell phones now. We think our iPhone will do that for us. Like that's what, like it's not sensitive enough.
Right.
Like you know yourself best.
Right.
But yeah, but I don't know. We've been doing a lot of breath work, mushroom work.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you done any deep psychedelic dives recently, or even mild ones?
More mild. I mean, so I'd say kind of on the spectrum of mild, because I tend to not take super large doses. But part of that too is that I'm just really sensitive. So sometimes a little bit can take me quite a ways, you know? And I notice that when I'm like with peers and like we'll eat, you know, a gram and everyone's like, oh, I kind of feel it. And I'm like, you know, like, okay, obviously what you guys eat, I eat like half. I'm in the same boat. Yeah.
Because my microdoses turn into macrodoses and like very quickly, like a half gram. I found out with like, wait a minute, this isn't work safe. Like, right. Yeah. And then I did a 2 gram one where I'm just like, gee, like it just came up so fast. And I'm like, wait a minute, I measured it.
Right.
What is going on?
But sometimes it's just what it is for that day and that trip and that time too. I've noticed like the dosing is tricky because it's just, they kind of do what they want to do. Sometimes it's really strong. Sometimes it's not. The last time I took a dose, we went up to Palomar and we had made some tea and we were having this was my business partner and we were having like a business meeting essentially. You know, we were going to go trip and hike and try and get some clarity and direction and halfway up Palomar Mountain we're like, holy shit, I don't know if we can make it the rest of the way up the mountain. Because it was such a light dose and we drank it at the bottom of the grade and we're like, okay, you know, by the time we park, and I mean, to me, it was like a super functional dose, but we were just smacked. And so it was that I didn't plan on it to go that way, but it ended up being perfect, right? It's just kind of.
So there's 2 other chemicals that are pretty prevalent in you got the psilocybin and then there's 2 other ones.
Yeah. So there's the psilocin, but those 2 are incredibly related where there's like a degradation process where one turns to the next or like even in the digestion process. And then there's baeocystin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then that's another one, but there's just no real understanding yet. You know, even like cannabis 10 years ago, they didn't understand like, oh yeah, there's, you know, terpenes, but they didn't know what terpenes and that the terpenes actually had a function, you know, and everyone's like, oh yeah, cannabis is like indica and sativa. Everyone's on that kick. Like indica and sativa makes you feel this way. And now they're like, oh no, it's actually the terpenes that create the entourage effect and gently guide it this way or it guides it that way and stuff like that. So
and the cannabinoids.
Yeah. And the spectrum of cannabinoids and the ratios.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like mushrooms are that way too. Because a lot of people in the community are like, oh, a cube's a cube's a cube's a cube. You know, it doesn't matter what strain it is. If you eat it, it's going to always, you know, they're all the same thing basically. And I can't say because there's no scientific evidence stating otherwise, but from personal experience, I would say that that's wrong.
But
you know?
I think, the chemistry says otherwise. Like you're dealing with this.
Yeah. Right.
But I think there's also a lot of mental stuff that we're not in touch with. Like every day, every moment, every second.
Right.
Are you familiar with the fruit durian?
Yes.
Okay. So you're aware of the smell.
You're right.
Okay.
That's what it's for.
I work with Adam Sanders. I work with him and like we always talk like this stuff, but we looked up the terpenes and chemical components of durian. And there's great research papers on it, but there's like 30 different esters. Yeah. And it's in like even some stuff that's like found in gasoline. Like it's very like it's one of the
fruit. Like
durian fruit
smells really bad.
Yep, but the chemical analysis of it is insanely complex.
I'd imagine. Yeah, it's almost probably just like the presence of so much that makes it so offensive.
But Adam brought in some durian chips or wafer cookies from the Asian market.
Oh, no way.
No, they were in 3 bags, and he's like, dude,
triple bagged.
Smell this. Because we're
triple bag it.
We buy like rare fruits and we try them. Like he'll get something from 99 Market but we haven't got a durian.
I used to go there.
Yeah.
Rancho 99.
Yeah.
I love it. They have like, it's almost like Panda Express where it's, you know, you pick what you want, but then they have like dead hanging ducks in the back.
Yeah, and the fish, all the live fish
with
in the
eyeballs in
tanks.
them. It's like a full fried fish. It's like the eyeballs and all.
Yeah.
It's the good stuff, man. And here we are in Corona times from bats, possibly, allegedly. So yeah, you can't eat anything. So, but yeah, we were just talking about mushroom compounds. Baocyst, like a cube's not a cube, or is it?
Or is it? Yeah.
You
I
mean
don't know. I think
cubensis?
Yeah, like we were talking about, like just like weed too. Like this strain does this, indica, sativa.
Well, everybody's different, so it probably affects
That's what I
everybody's
settled.
brain chemistry
Yeah.
differently.
I think it's
Hard to say.
probably a mix of both. I think that there's probably unique ratios of compounds that have a certain effect, but then it's also mixed with like what's your personal trauma, what's your personal head game, what's going on with you personally. So I think it's probably a combo of the two.
So part of the setting and situation.
Yeah,
Set
an
and setting.
internal set and setting
Yeah.
too. You know,
Yeah.
right? So I think that comes into play definitely, but I'm excited to see the progression of that and the understanding unfold.
I'm a big fan of like, you don't have to take it all at once.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
you've nibbled
it's
over
gonna
7
be-
grams over several hours.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You just
several
kept
grams.
eating
Yeah.
it. You're like,
Yeah.
"Brr, brr."
Yeah.
yeah.
I always get a voice in my head that tells me to take more.
Take more. Yeah.
No, but really, I mean, I think it's a real thing. Like, I get this like feeling like, don't worry,
Yeah.
we got you.
Yeah. It's the mushrooms.
That's what
man.
Ari says too.
Yeah.
Ari's like, listen, you having a bad trip? Just talk to it. Say, hey,
Yeah.
lay off. Calm down.
Well, that's like the McKenna thing too. He's like, I don't understand ecstasy because you could just take mushrooms and say, be like ecstasy, and it will. But so that's actually that night I tried that because I was like, oh yeah, I want to try to make it like ecstasy because I was out of ecstasy.
Yeah. Yeah. See if,
Partially one of the reasons.
see if we can get this to work out.
So yeah, I like, and then I swear it's like I get this voice. It's like, oh, don't worry, take some more. And I think honestly, if there is some kind of intelligence there, and I think there is, like I've had too many synchronicities and weird things happen while taking them.
Yeah.
But it was just like telling me like, don't worry, like don't be afraid of taking these large doses because I've always, you know, taken
Yeah.
these like tiny little
Right.
pussy kind of doses, you know. And then it was just like, don't worry. And then I just kept getting this like, take 2 more. It's like, all right, fine. I get up, got 2 more. And then I got up to 5. I swear to God, I was high, but I wasn't like tripping balls.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was able to go inside and it was like normal basically. And then I was like, okay, 2 more. I was like,
Yeah.
I already took 5. What do you want from me? But yeah, I mean, I was definitely high, but it was not like you would think off
What you
7
would think
grams.
is 7 grams.
Yeah.
I've heard that too, though, like threshold too. A lot of
But I was
guys that
also
do
drinking.
heavy doses are like, oh no, I'm not gonna take 3 grams. That's uncomfortable as fuck. You got to do like 5 or 6 and push through that.
Well, that is
And
what
then
I've
break
heard.
through the other
Underdosing.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah. The underdosing is like it leaves too much body and too much anxiousness. And
Well, McKenna kind of explains it like surfing. Like you go out and it's almost like you're in that impact zone at
Yeah,
the lower doses.
lower dose.
But he said what you want to do is like get past that where you're past the breakers.
right. That makes sense.
I don't know.
I just haven't had the balls to go there, but it makes
I think
sense.
once you get there, though, I think you're just like okay, like. But
Do you know Sam
I've never
Harris?
actually done it all at
Have you
once.
heard of that? The podcaster or neuroscientist. He's like a straight edge. He had an experience with MDMA and he talks about it a lot, but he's a neuroscientist. He's been
Yeah.
on Rogan,
Nice.
done a lot of stuff. But just last year, he did the heroic dose and documented it. 5 grams in total darkness. And he's as a neuroscientist, and his wife's a psychologist. Like he did it blindfolded, all as McKenna directed.
Yeah.
And he has a podcast where he explained it really eloquently, very, very amazingly. But he's like, this dude, come on, like you don't need this. He's like, what? Like everything is just jumbled together.
Yeah.
Like you're going to come out of this. But he said it was good experience, but he didn't think it was needed.
The like level of dose? Or?
The heroic dose.
Yeah, like that high.
The mythos of the heroic dose.
Yeah.
But
Well, I the more that I've been involved with mushrooms and taking them. I mean, when I first started growing them, I was eating them all the time. But never huge doses. And I noticed that instead of, I think, if you take them back to back day after day, there's a tolerance that takes place. But when you're not taking them like that, but frequently taking them, for me, I feel like my tolerance actually went down because like the more opened I was becoming from them, the less it took to get there.
I agree.
And that's kind of where I'm at now, where I can, I'm with friends that take these astronomical doses and they obviously get off well, but I feel like sometimes I'm deeper than them on like a quarter of what they took. And I feel like that's obviously something to do with me internally, and maybe just at the frequency with which I've taken them, or meditation training at a younger age, or stuff like that.
I also think it's up to the drug a little bit too.
Oh yeah, they do. I always say that they're gonna do with you what they want.
It's so true though.
Yeah,
because I've
you're
taken the
just
exact same dose in the same setting, and one time it was like, nah.
Yeah.
And then the other time, and then they're,
Well, edibles
like,
can
you
be
needed-
that way
you
with
needed
me
this.
even, too.
Oh yeah.
Cannabis, a 25 milligram dose is
people
like
underestimate
nothing one day, and then sometimes at 25, I'm like, I gotta go to bed. I can't even,
It's complex.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely something even just.
Or I gotta go to bed and lay there for 8 hours and shake and
go through
sweat
everything
and go
that's
through
ever happened
every
in my
single
life.
thing,
relive every trauma.
every shitty thing you've ever said to anybody in your entire life. Sounds like a great time.
For sure. Yeah.
But when it's over, you feel amazing.
You do feel amazing.
You feel like
amazing.
you've been reborn.
I honestly, cannabis is probably one of the best psychedelics.
It's one of the harshest, though.
It is. It's not a forgiving one. It's not a fun one. When you get to the psychedelic level with it, it's. When I get that far with it, it's never a great time.
No.
I'm not ever having a.
I usually think I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah, it's almost always. Yeah.
I had to start telling myself, okay, maybe I'm having a heart attack, but also, what is the chances that I happen to be having a heart attack when I also ate some weed?
And when you're in it, you're always like, I'm gonna
But
be
you're
that
like, no.
asshole. That's
That's
the
the
first
thing.
person to die from
You
cannabis.
spiraled. I was
Everybody
driving.
goes through that.
I was
don't know.
driving one time,
It's
and I was
so
like,
dark that
I'm
way.
gonna be the first guy,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna be on the news,
Yeah,
and they're gonna
ruin
make it
for everybody.
illegal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
everybody's been through that.
Everyone goes there. I don't know why. But it's definitely the one that's like, if you want to corner yourself into working through some shit, go eat a good edible and lock yourself in. Hang on.
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
It's
But-
never been like that with mushrooms for me. Like
Yeah.
you get all creeped out and weird, but you get some weird places, but it's not that extreme cannabis
Yeah. It
like
just
through the
takes
looking
over.
glass. But
Yeah.
Even when I smoke, though, sometimes like it's almost like, okay, here we go.
dabs
Yeah.
were like
Well,
I do
when I do
dabs,
dabs.
so I can
yeah.
get there.
Yeah,
Just
it's
when
like,
you-
all right,
like, oh,
time for.
shit.
It's almost like, I just get this voice in my head. It's like a psychologist, basically. Like, all right, we got some work to do. I'm like, shit,
Oh, damn it, not
supposed to
you.
be pleasurable.
The breath work does help though.
It does.
Now that I've learned more about that, because
So
you
now
can
you have
trigger your
tools.
body's reaction.
Right.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
this
You
is
could potentially
this
get rid of
became
that
before this.
fight. Yeah.
Well, I'm interested in doing like a good size psychedelic dose now after like the breath work. And
applying
I told you I've been trying to meditate most days, like since actually, I was thinking that when I started really meditating was the day Ram Dass died.
Wow.
That was my meditation
last year.
anniversary. I was like, well, I guess I better start meditating
Wasn't
now.
it around
Ram Dass
Christmas
is
the
dead.
It was around Christmas of last year
I think it was this
Thanksgiving?
year. I think it was early this year, like January.
in
or something.
2020.
Yeah.
Okay, right after
Yeah.
Christmas. And
Well, he died, and then I had a copy of Be Here Now, so it's like, well, I started flipping through
Started
it, and
digging
I was
through
like,
it.
God damn it! I always try to meditate, and I do it once or twice,
Yeah.
but like I never really.
so hard to commit to.
Yeah,
Everyone goes through that. That's
I crave
struggle
it.
for everyone.
I crave it now.
Yeah. Well, you're
I
good. Then
want
you
it.
push
you're in
through
it now, but
Yeah.
But
it's cyclical.
It's hard though. It's
Yeah.
not easy work.
when you start getting into some serious obstacles, and then you I've
get-
had experiences that made me run away from it.
Yeah, no, I've literally had to sit there and be like, okay, shadow,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah.
But you just have to like, okay, well, this is part of me. I mean, it's just like a psychedelic trip,
It really is. Yeah.
But Yeah, I've seen, and it's almost weird because you have the, you almost like visuals at some point, kind of.
Yeah, I've had some of the most.
But then I've had it just like
ceremonies.
shift like into this dark place,
Yeah.
and then you just have to be like, okay, well, obviously
Yeah.
you're in control, so this is what you want to do. But yeah, it's just like a trip almost.
Yeah.
But I've heard stories of people getting into like pretty hard places just from meditating alone.
Are you familiar with what they call caving? Like when you go digging into caves?
Like a
called
darkness
spelunking.
retreat?
Yeah,
Right, or
spelunking.
spelunking, yeah.
So I like to think of meditation and these psychedelic practices as like spelunking.
Like internal.
Because you're like you
Yeah.
drop in and you're like
Yeah.
there's spiders or there's like
Right.
jewel like a chest of jewels.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I like that imagery.
Yeah, but spelunking, that's you never know what you're gonna get.
I gotta say though, combining the breath work though, like I guess it's like the Wim Hof or the Tumo breathing with meditating, that is like game changer.
Yeah.
That is huge because you get into that space where it's just like, oh, that's what I wish I was like all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just
Yeah, for sure.
freaking get a relief of silence for a while in your head, and you can get into some pretty trippy places with that too. Like I was even seeing like the flower of life and everything like the other night. It's pretty
all
intense.
the archetypical stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what really kind of, in general, sets most of the traditions apart is just like how they approach the breath work. Because the rest of it's just sitting, you're sitting.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the mudras and like in different, there is body postures and mudras. And
Yeah,
that-
correct.
I think that those probably affect your breathing in some way too. But I don't know what this will do over that or anything. But
it's that's probably. I'm
different mudras,
guessing, but
yeah.
probably some of this is probably making energetic connections.
okay,
Because you got pathways, right? Energy pathways. If you follow those traditions, and they all branch out and end in your
and your feet too,
extremities.
right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's probably like this is probably a specific connection with two different energy pathways or whatever, something like that. But and back to the hallucination things really quick. In Zen tradition, that's called makios specifically, and that's just like a known established thing. And like, that's kind of a sign that you're starting to make progress.
Well, that's one of the things
Start
I
going
wanted to
through those.
why I wanted to kind of bring it up, because you actually started getting into Buddhism like pretty young, and you actually are probably the most knowledgeable person I know as far as like Buddhism. You even had your master, right?
Yeah,
was your name?
I took vows and started training under the Zen tradition.
And where was that at, or what place is it?
Well, so the center or temple, it's not really temple, but center is called, it's Hidden Valley Zen Center.
Okay, Hidden Valley Zen Center.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was your master's name?
Mitra Bishop Roshi.
Okay.
She's from two lineages, but currently, one of the more accomplished students, if you could call it that, of a really long-standing traditional Japanese lineage.
Mm-hmm.
Zen.
And she's really big on, because I've seen like YouTube videos, and I
Her
remember,
talks and stuff.
yeah, and when she actually talked about, because your son's name is Quinn,
Yeah.
and she's really big, like that's an actual like character in the Zen tradition, is that right?
We're his students. Like we train in his style of Zen. So his breath practice that we do, or the breath practice we do, is something that he developed and whatnot, and his teaching style and everything. So yeah, we're like Hakuin's Zen. That's her lineage.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, how old were you when you got into Buddhism? Like, how did you find it?
Interesting. I went to Palomar. I signed up for Palomar College herbology class in the non-credited section. So, and they had the classroom was at like Nordstrom's at North County Fair, and the conference room at Nordstrom's.
Perfect.
So yeah, my mom chooses to join me, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go take this herbology class and learn about herbs. I was like at 16 at the time, just way into natural healing and stuff, right? And we get there, and lo and behold, the teacher is not teaching anything about herbs, and he was an ex-professor at UC Riverside and anthropologist, and had gone down to Peru and studied with the medicine men of the Incan lineage, and fucking gave up being a professor and took on like apprenticeship in shamanic arts, like Incan shamanic arts. And so there we are learning like shamanism, prayer work, like all the mandala work. It was wild, man. And I loved what I was learning on the shamanic end of things. Because I was really connected to like native spirituality at the time, but he would occasionally drop these Buddhist quotes and they would just like hit so deep, just like, whoa, what was that? And so then I picked up like a Tibetan Buddhist book, and that was the beginning of it. Tibetan Buddhism's still like very shamanic too.
Oh yeah.
They have a lot of shamanic arts still present because it's, just like any religion, it adapts to the culture, and the Tibetans held onto a lot of their shamanic traditions and tantric traditions.
But you say shamanic, like, do you think, what kind of entheogens do you think they were taking, like, way back? Like, do you think Buddha was actually, like, when he achieved enlightenment, do you think there was some kind of entheogen involved in that?
I don't know. It's hard to say. In Tibet, I'm not sure what they have that's, like, psychoactive, though I don't doubt that they do traditionally have entheogenic plants. I mean, honestly, that cordyceps, they've found cordyceps that are actually psychoactive even. So maybe even that. But that's the thing, too, I think, is that you don't need those things if you learn these ancient techniques.
But maybe they figured that out after, because
some of the old sutras, though, like there's a whole podcast I listened to on this. There's a new book out about, just like you think the mushrooms were in Christianity, right? This guy traces psychedelics.
Well, the Vedics, I mean, the Soma being so huge.
But he also thinks there was something along the lines, they were cryptic in the way they wrote, and they talk about some things like as meats, like there's like, but he brought up there was something, his theory was like ayahuasca, where they were doing an MAOI and consuming some sort of artichoke that, and there's pictures of these flowers that look like lotus flowers.
Yeah.
And they grow in the Himalayas like these, it's an artichoke or no, it's a rhubarb. Look this up, the Himalayan rhubarb. And they stand out on the landscape as this beautiful plant, but then they put this giant white lotus flower out.
Yeah.
And he suspected there was a species of those
that
they were using as with an MAOI.
Well, he isn't even, I think with like the Changa and like some of the smoking blends, the blue lotus is often present, and even like passion flower, and those are MAOIs. Those are natural.
Well, blue lotus in ancient Egypt was huge. I mean, there's so many hieroglyphs about them. They make like a wine out of it, and there's all these hieroglyphs of them drinking the lotus wine and then like having sex, like big orgies and stuff.
Wow.
Well, I saw in the Buddha's, or Shakyamuni Buddha's early career as a spiritualist, he engaged in like all of the like Vedic and yogic practices the yogic practices of the day. Like he spent years as an ascetic.
But that's what it's kind of based off of.
So probably in those times, I'm sure at one point he tried all kinds of things and was just not satisfied.
Well, isn't that kind of the story? He tried everything. He tried starving himself.
Yeah,
he tried all the different traditions, and then nothing worked. And he was like, "Well, I'm just going to die here."
He would get to where they had all gotten, and he would have their experience and be like, "Oh, you've mastered it," and he was always just left with like this. That's not the finale, though. There's like you're falling short. There's more, and so I think Buddhism wouldn't necessarily need entheogens just because his meditation techniques are so potent, and when you get into like with the Zen training, like I still
breath work too.
With the breath work, I've still had more visually lucid potent experiences on a meditation cushion than I've had with any of the drugs, DMT, anything that I've tried. So in that regard, I don't know that you would need anything more than the breath.
Well, doing like the Wim Hof and the Tumo breathing and stuff, you definitely get to where it's a DMT type feeling. I explain it almost like a mix between like a Whippet and like DMT. Yeah. But still, like I have yet to really feel like that. I don't know. Maybe after like
the 2 or 3 hour holotropic,
long time.
That's intense.
Yeah.
Like I've only
Michael
got
Pollan went through that, right? Because he was worried about doing the.
He didn't want to do MDMA, but he said he thought it would have actually been safer to do the MDMA.
But I've tried to do from the Stanislav Grof, the holotropic.
Yeah.
And I get about 10, 15 minutes in and my hands are numb. My arms get like, I don't feel them anymore.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine doing it for 2 hours, but it's a change of mind. It's a change of state.
Sure.
It's a phase
Yeah, but
change.
compared to like a really heavy acid dose or maybe like ayahuasca or like a heavy DMT.
I think there's one thing to be said though about doing things.
Yeah. But what do you even take from that? Like a heavy acid dose, you just end up with, or a heavy DMT dose, like at the end, you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you kind of come to the same place. It's like, I'm starting to think now, like maybe you don't have to do that much deep work with, with drugs to really get to the same place.
I get more out of DMT when I do small. Every time,
I take small puffs.
Right
before bed sometimes, and I dream. Like I just dream hard.
It's a good nightcap.
Yeah, it's really the peace that comes on the glow.
And that's that feeling that I get though from doing like the breath work and meditation. Like it's the same feeling at the glow. End. Yeah,
for sure. I think with the makyos or like the hallucinatory experiences in meditation, that really kind of disrupted my training. And I kind of have just run from it since. I'll pick up meditation, but never in a very committed way. But I think what's so intense about that is when you're on mushrooms and you're having a really challenging experience, you're like, oh, I'm on mushrooms, or DMT, like, holy shit, whatever, I'm on DMT, I'll come out. But when it's like not produced by a substance and it's 100% you, there's like a whole nother level of like realness to it, because you're like, you can't blame it on a substance that's just it's all you, and you're like, holy shit, where is this coming from? Where does this reside? And this is all me. There's no substance, there's no condition.
That's why I love the quote with Salvador Dali. You ever hear that? Somebody asked him like, what kind of drugs do you do?
Like, I
am drugs. But that's so true though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dennis
we're
McKenna is just like, our brain is drugs.
Yeah. Right. The whole, we're just nothing but chemical reactions, chasing chemical reactions.
And then Terrence McKenna, he's like, everybody's holding.
Yeah, I think all these substances though, they all give you a glimpse of the mystery.
Right. It's the window. My teacher, like whenever I'd have experiences, she'd be like, great, you had a tip of the tongue taste, you peered through the window, but there's so much more to go. I
think that's what Maharaji would also say too. It's like it's a real thing. You could get there, and I think that was like the story of Ram Dass.
Gave him
like
the acid.
Well, not that, but he was saying like, yogis have known about this for hundreds, thousands of years. You could just go pick it up in the hills. But he said you can get a glimpse. It's a real thing, but you don't get to stay.
Right.
Like the elevator,
Right.
It's good because you get to see like this is what's possible, but you don't get to stay.
Right.
So like the real work is where it's at, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, you're just with the entheogens, I feel like you're bypassing the work, right? In the sense of like when you get it from meditations, because you spent hours breaking down conditioning, you spent hours, digging up traumas, and so it's like when the end result is that super intense experience from a lot of cultivation, it's got a foundation to it, and it sticks. And like some of the most intense meditation experiences I ever had, left me with a drastic change. And I mean, a good psychedelic experience leaves you with a drastic change too.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what is your deepest, most profound trip that you've had? It could be from a drug or meditation or whatever. It's all the same, really.
I don't know. Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, because I feel like even though there's a lot of like internal stuff that goes on with entheogens, it still to me feels so much more like an outward look, whereas with like meditation, like maybe say my deepest meditation experience, it was it completely just changed my relationship to the universe, So that for me it wasn't as like fantastical as like say my deepest DMT, but it was more like back to more of that like foundational shift. So it was more profound, but in a different way. So it's kind of hard to compare. But Deems gives me the greatest shifts too. Like when
DMT?
When I'm working with like the past few years, for the first time in my life, I've had more like depression bouts and stuff, you know, like, and so when I'm having those like really tough periods of like lack of motivation and the constant fatigue, I'm not tired, it's, you know, it's depression fatigue and stuff like that. The DMT, a good little DMT hit, and I'll have like a month of just like, I'm motivated. I crave hungry.
Food.
Is it NN, or are you doing 5-MeO or toad?
NN, I've never tried 5-MeO.
I haven't either.
I have
Sounds dangerous.
I have an interesting connection to that with the Hamilton episode with the larger guy, correct?
Yeah.
The larger guy that
goes
deep.
In the water and screaming and shit. Yeah.
So Aaliyah's friend is friends with that guy, and that guy actually does ceremonies in Central Coast, California.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's not really expressed in that episode, but when he is having that experience, he's that's like maybe, you know, I can't put a number on it, but he's quite experienced even up to that time with Hamilton. That's not like his first or second time. Like he goes to this, he's regularly attending those ceremonies. Wow. So he's turned around, I guess, and he offers that experience. But NN is, I get so much from NN. Dude. I can't even imagine.
But apparently the 5-MeO, like, there's barely any visuals either. It's like it's kind of like so abstract. Yeah. It's just like a thought pattern. Like I laugh hysterically when Mike Tyson talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? Like,
I've heard
the
that
toad
he
changed
it,
my life.
To see it.
Well, he had that other interview. He was like crying about it.
He's like the toad was the greatest.
Yeah.
And everyone I hear about it is the same day.
Yeah, everyone says that though, right? Like, it's the most life-changing, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but people also die from choking on their own
crazy.
vomits.
This is a weird thing. There's a porn star that just got charged recently for he have you heard of Nacho? There's a porn star named Nacho. Okay, famous porn star. I know who he is. Sorry, but he does these toad sessions in Spain or Portugal, and someone died.
Oh, you know, I think I caught wind of this on a newscast.
Yeah,
and of course,
and he's charged. It was like a long investigation. He's charged with like manslaughter.
Manslaughter, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the responsibility that the leader of the ceremony takes on.
Yeah. But I've heard too, just from reading, that you could die of awe, like just wonder.
Your body's just like checked out.
It's probably the hell of a way to go out. But
yeah, right.
Well, we should probably wrap this up soon because we're about to get kicked out of this park. But I wanted to ask you, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years, Jeremiah?
I don't know, man. Shit changes so fast. I don't look that far anymore.
Taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, I kind of got to, man. And you know, especially like with COVID and shit, I think that's super revealing that like you can't fucking plan on much. Because look where we're at. Like our whole life, 7 months, dude, 7 months, and our whole lives are completely different. The kids are doing school at home. There's, we've got all this whole new approach to life. It's wild. So today I put in my 2-week notice for AC. I'm going.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Full-time mycology.
So
you guys find a place?
We didn't. We shifted gears.
I know you guys were looking at that one spot.
Yeah, we shifted gears, man. I honestly, to be 100% honest, I kind of had a little bit of a freak out as we were going through the application process.
Sounded like a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot of
too.
overhead, and the whole AC. I mean, like I was saying, with the depression bouts and shit, a lot of it's been just work derived. My job, dude, is just literally just killing me, man. And so when we started getting into the application process, it was so exciting. Like, oh, we got these offices, and this is going to be a commercial kitchen, and this is, going to be grow rooms and all this stuff. And then I had a day of it, and I'm like, I'm going to be working my ass off to pay rent. And I'm never going to be able to, or not never, but, in the time, it feels like in the dramatic moment and caught in the emotions of it, it felt like forever I'm never going to be able to pay rent or leave AC because I'm just going to be working to pay rent on a space. So I don't know if I manifested it failing or what, but the application process didn't end up working out. And then with my day job, I got put on a job that was we're working with a roofing company, and there's asbestos, and I told my boss that I wasn't comfortable, and he kind of made a joke out of it, and I essentially told him to fuck himself, basically, in so many words. And so that money that was going to go into looking for commercial space is now just going to go to getting me out of AC and committed to full-time mycology. So,
Hell yeah.
I mean, the 5-year projection, my hope is land, successful medicinal tincture business, and hopefully at that point, education, touring, mushroom festivals, workshops, just doing the mushrooms work, man. I'm doing their bidding, it's
Jeremiah, I hate to tell you, you only think you're in charge.
I know. Well, that's a funny joke that floats around the mushroom community. Everyone's like, yes, my mushroom overlords. I'm doing, everyone gets that feeling. And I mean, look at the world. I mean, look at fungi perfecti, like mycelium and mushrooms will set the chemical and biology for an entire biome.
Yeah.
Like they shape the world. So why are they not shaping us? Why are they, what I mean? We're part of that. I literally think that they control everything.
Or they're here as our saviors.
Right.
They're going to just like turn the ship just a little bit so we don't hit that fucking iceberg. Hopefully.
I hope,
Hopefully.
man.
Much love.
Yeah.
Much love.
Love you, man.
Definitely. Love you guys.
Oh, where can we find you? Where can people find you?
Instagram at Bodhi Mountain Mycology. And then also at Instagram, we have Healing Cultures. That's another page. And then we have an actual website that's bodhimountainmycology.com, but it's BODHIMTNMYCO.com. So Bodhi Mountain Myco.
All right. Nice.
That's where I am.
All right. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks, guys.